Hi, everyone. This is Tom Salemi of DeviceTalks. I'm very happy to be here at 160 Studios. We're visiting with some of our keynote speakers for DeviceTalks Boston, which is happening on April 30th and May 1st at the Boston Convention Exhibition Center. And right now, I have the opportunity to visit with my friend Holly Scott of the Mullings Group. And our guest today at this moment is Cecilia Soriano. She is the Worldwide President of Infusion Therapies and Technology at Baxter. Cecilia, thank you for joining us today.
For having me both.
So folks who pay attention to our websites may noted that you were going to be a keynote speaker at DeviceTalks West, but last fall, of course, Hurricane Helene struck, and it was all hands on deck at Baxter, and we are happy that things are moving forward there, and we're extremely happy and that you're going to be sharing that story at DeviceTalks Boston. So Cecilia, just give us a breakdown or a sense of what those times were like at Baxter when the storm first hit, and then of course we want to get into the recovery a bit. But what happened back in October?
Yeah, so it seems like ages ago, and but I'm going to take you back to late September. So we were, as you know, I was supposed to be elsewhere. But unfortunately, as Baxter, we track all storms whenever we have a facility. We literally, during hurricane season, track where storms are across the U.S. and otherwise on a daily basis. So we were definitely tracking Hurricane Helene. And if you both recall, it was a storm that was coming up from Florida. And we had, as usual, implemented our hurricane preparedness plan. We have a very robust plan in place with, of course, our employees being our #1 priority. So we had already executed, 24 hours prior to the projected time frame in which the hurricane was going to hit our plant. We evacuated our employees. We also had, kind of proactively moved product, finished goods to higher ground. We secured storage, just getting ready for the storm. For a little bit of context, however, our plant is located in Western North Carolina. We call it our North Cove manufacturing plant. And it is the largest manufacturing IV solutions plant in the US. Mm-hmm. So we make over 1 million IV solutions per day in that plant. And I'm sure if either one of you have ever had a procedure, have been in the hospital, or maybe one of your loved ones, IV solutions are definitely, critical to the healthcare system. Anytime you're in either, again, acute or outpatient procedure, you will very likely get fluids via an IV bag. So these are the types of products that we manufacture in North Carolina. So giving you a context of where it was, how we were preparing. However, I don't think anybody could have predicted what actually happened. We've actually been at this plant for over 5 decades.
Wow.
And we have never, ever experienced a storm like this. It has even been characterized as the 1,000-year storm. Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned, we were all prepared. We had a core group, team on site that stays always as part of our hurricane preparedness. But unfortunately, the unprecedented, truly, rain, flooding, just provided, and the storm surge, honestly, triggered a levee breach. So there's a levee protecting, access to the site and ensuring that water to contain the water, blocking water from entering our plant. Unfortunately, it was breached. What does that mean? First and foremost, we had tremendous amount of water permeating our entire facility, honestly. It damaged finished goods inventory, raw materials. And then the second consequence was that the bridges that provide access to our site were also completely damaged.
Wow.
So we had no access to the site. And if you can imagine kind of the bigger picture, that's our manufacturing site. But all the surrounding communities were flooded. There was no power, no cell phone, no internet, across the entire area. I'm sure you've all heard of Asheville. We're just a few miles down the road from Asheville, North Carolina. All the roads were closed, homes destroyed, and unfortunately, lives were lost. So the storm truly wreaked havoc across the entire region. And it's hard to imagine now, what we found, because I was at the site, 48 hours after the fact, of what we found when we got there versus the tremendous, tremendous work that the Baxter team did, and the community, honestly, to get us where we are today is truly, in my mind, nothing short of a miracle.
Well, I'm being in Florida and a native Floridian. I'm no stranger to hurricanes, but that one surprised everyone. We're on the East Coast. Yeah, it came out of nowhere, and through even our area, we saw tornadoes that had never been seen in history. These are tornadoes that are classically in the Midwest. That some of the things that came through, it was crazy. That facility, 2,500 people, is that right, at that facility?
Yeah, 2,500 people.
What do you do with people that are now, so you've got this facility, and obviously the ripple effects of the products and the patients that needs them. So there's that whole side of it. And then you've got these employees. What do you tell them? Okay, stand by. How does that work?
Yeah, so we wanted first and foremost for them to be safe, right? So again, that's why we evacuated as soon as we saw the storm coming, and that's just part of our normal procedure. But after the storm, as you can imagine, we needed to account for every single one of those 2,500 employees, and we did. But as I mentioned, no cell phones, no internet, roads closed. It was hard. Many employees, honestly, because if you can imagine, Baxter plant is the major employer in that area, right? So we had family members and employees literally come down to the site, to the manufacturing site, within hours and the days that followed. But we took the time, we accounted for every single employee. And if that meant, and we did this, knocking door to door to each employee's homes, we did. And several of these employees, by the way, live up a mountain, which was extremely hard to get into. So that was our number one priority. And I'm happy to report, of course, that within days, we had accounted for all 2,500 employees. Secondly, though, once our employees are accounted for and safe, it was also just assessing, before we could even assess the impact, you can't even imagine the amount of just cleaning up that needed to happen before we could even assess, each one of our lines, if they were working or not. And then our top priority, as you mentioned, this is a critical product for healthcare, right? For patients. How do we ensure supply? So the good news around that is, although obviously our plant was shut down, I mentioned before, we have a really large warehouse on site, which most of the product there was safe. And we had containers that were already loaded with finished goods that we could not ship that day. And they were put on higher ground. But we had no bridges, remember? We have no access to the site. So we had all this product sitting there. We couldn't get it in and out. So if I can anchor back on the employees, right? So these are incredible statistics in my mind, but within 2 days, we had established an employee assistance center, basically. So just a couple miles down the road from where the plant was, in a much more accessible part of the area, we set up, access to generators, laundry, food, water. We even provide them access. We have, as Baxter, we have an employee disaster relief fund. Honestly, literally to provide, again, personal property had been damaged, if they had any emergency expenses, whatever, literally, Baxter took, there was no cost that was too high in order for us to ensure that our employees had what they need, and their families, right? Like many of our employees lost their entire homes. We had homes floating down the river, literally. Then the bridges. So this was critical, right? We needed to get product out to customers. Within 1 week, we installed a temporary bridge. So we literally built a bridge so that we could access to the plant and start transferring these containers, truckloads. So for context, by the end, I think it was by the end of November, we had literally transported about 1,200 truckloads of product out to customers, even though our plant was completely shut down. So again, those bridges were absolutely critical. And then I will be showing you a video when we go to Boston, so you get a better picture of kind of the devastation at the plant. So this will become a little bit more clear, but the amount of mud and water that needed to be drained and just deep cleaning every single inch of the plant. I have to say our plant now is absolutely impeccable. It is absolutely impeccable now, but as you can imagine, it took tremendous amount of effort. I saw a statistic just last week that we've estimated about 2.5 million hours of work have gone into this whole recovery effort to get back to where we were before. So within a month of the hurricane happening, we already had our number one manufacturing line up and running. That's the line that produces saline, which is the highest IV solutions product that we have. And I'm happy to report we're like, 4 months post, all 10 of our manufacturing lines are back up and running. So tremendous effort. And I have to say, like, as a Baxter employee, I could not be more proud of all the work, all the people cross-functionally, that made this happen.
I think we're going to be able to unpack a lot of those steps at DeviceTalks Boston, but you gave us the recovery of the status of the recovery. You've got all 10 lines up. Are you,
yeah.
When would you expect to be producing what you're producing in September of 2024?
Yeah, we're almost there. I would say by the end of this month.
Wow.
However, as you can imagine, it's going to take a while to build the supply chain, right? The inventory levels within the channel, et cetera, to truly get back to, pre-hurricane levels. But we're almost there, just weeks away from getting back to the same volume of manufacturing. We're playing catch up more than anything right now. So I truly appreciate also, I do want to call out our customers. Have been absolutely amazing. We put them in a the hurricane put them and hence us in a very, very difficult position. And ultimately, obviously, it's about the patients, right? So they've been extremely flexible, excellent partners. And one of the things that I think is critical in all this, the level of communication that we've had. We've tried to be as transparent as possible. Many times we didn't know. We literally did not know how long it would take us to get back up and running. But the dialogue, the partnership has nothing, amazing with our customers. And the government, I have to say, we could talk about that a little bit later as well. But we actually activated our global network. And so working, with the FDA and HSS to have special import licenses to bring product was also critical for us to, kind of to bridge the gap until our plant was fully up and running.
Well, we'll certainly look back at your experience at DeviceTalks Boston, and I think we'll have an opportunity to look forward as well. Are there any lessons that you've incorporated
Yes.
from the recovery that are now part of your regular practice and you think makes you even stronger than you were 5 months ago?
Yeah, we're always in learning mode. So even after Hurricane Maria, and I don't even recall when that was, a few years ago, right? Hurricane Maria, coming out of that, we have satellite phones on every single site. We have generators. So every time we have an unfortunate, weather event, we incorporated our hurricane preparedness plan is extremely robust. But I would say from a lessons learned perspective, and this is something that's, I believe, very unique to Baxter. I mentioned that we actually activated 9 of our manufacturing sites in Asia and in Europe. So we imported product and we were able to turn that around like extremely quickly. So having a very strong supply chain and manufacturing network is absolutely critical. So for us, it's more, that supply redundancy. And by the way, the local teams in those individual countries working with the government on their local countries, to make sure U.S. volume was prioritized. It was, many people, many functions and countries that got involved. But the redundancy does not mean replacement, right? One can never fully replace an entire site, manufacturing site if something like this happens, but it is more than anything about the contingency plans that you have. So you build that resiliency within the supply network. So we're getting better and better at doing that. I think it's one of the unique strengths that we have as Baxter because of our footprint that we have globally. I would say the second maybe lesson learned is just having really good end-to-end like a supply chain visibility. As consumers, right? Like Amazon, at our fingertips, where is my package? And you know exactly where it is until it gets to your door. Unfortunately, in healthcare, it doesn't quite work that way yet. So I think there's a little bit more opportunity. We know when we manufacture, when it leaves our site, but then sometimes we lose a little bit of site, track of exactly where it is in the process until it gets to that patient. And so I think that's an opportunity working, with our distribution partners, with the hospitals that we serve, et cetera. A little bit more to do there. And then I think just as I mentioned, the cross-functional, cross-collaboration, and having those strong relationships, be it with a government, with associations, with, again, some of our distributors is fundamental. So having a kind of a clear and coordinated engagement plan, maybe I would call, is something that was critical and something we will continue to reinforce. And we learned a lot from here, especially as I mentioned, since we activated our global network, right? So it wasn't just the US. So yeah, I think those are our three main lessons learned, but as you can imagine, many, many more.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate your offering to come and share your story at DeviceTalks Boston. I know our attendees will find it reassuring that you're back up and running, and certainly will be up at that point at the end of April, early May. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that they'll take away from your really unfortunate experience. Thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you in Boston.
Thank you.